when people talk about data science, like, cool, I'm going to go and do something in Spark. Like, I'm kind of going to pick up MATLAB because it has like supervised learning, unsupervised learning. Like, you want to like look at k-median, run a regression. It's right there, and it's been maintained for north of 10 years now. It's really old, and we've just had the ability to do all this data science directly in Postgres for a long time now. Now, when you enable it, you get whole new functions, right? And you basically execute these functions and pass in the right things, and you get something back. Something like a PLV8, which I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of PL Python. To me, this, like, you mentioned, like, hey, things are getting crazy when we've got JavaScript in our database.
Yeah, right.
For a long time, we had this idea of like, no, never put application logic in your database, right? Like, right. The database is this dumb store. Think,
just store my data,
call it in, like a big hash in the sky. And I'm like, no, it's useful. It has all the data, and you can do interesting things. So like PL Python, a couple of weeks ago, before we launched our product, I was like, what can I do with this? And I just started poking, and I installed SciPy, NumPy, and Pandas. And I started live tweeting. I probably shouldn't have, because it could have gone horribly wrong, right? Like, I'm going to see what I can do. And then, 2 hours later, there's like crickets. But no, I actually was able to, in about 20 lines of Python, which I basically wrote a function that executes Python inside my Postgres database.
Okay. Imports Pandas. I pass in some records to it. And I pass in like a history of orders and what's in a shopping cart. And it's basically a recommendation engine of you should recommend these products to this person. 20 lines of Python directly in my database. I didn't have to go and spin up a Kafka queue to get the data out of Postgres into Spark to run some model to feed back into Redis to then, show this to the user. Literally 20 lines of Python directly in my database to have a recommendation engine for products. And it breaks the mold, I think, of what we've been thinking for the past 5 or 10 years. But if I look at it from a practical standpoint, like this gospel of never put logic into your database, like, well, large enterprises have been doing this for years and years and years. If you look at things like Oracle and SAP applications, they're almost nothing but huge procedural, code. And with Postgres, now that we can do it in things like JavaScript with PLV8 and Python, it can be more native to an app developer.